What's going on, fam? This another Swipe Like TV reaction, man. You got tensions boiling over between Israel and Hamas. Hamas sent 250 rockets overnight responding to Israel killing one of their top captains. Man, it's getting crazy out there, fam, man. Possibly could spill over into the U.S. Y'all like, subscribe, share. Let's get into it. For educational purpose, let's go.
Tensions are growing in the Middle East as Hamas and Israel weigh the terms of a possible ceasefire. The latest escalation happened along Israel's border with Lebanon. Hezbollah launched dozens of rockets into northern Israel, most of which were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome. The attack is in response to an Israeli strike that killed one of the Iranian-backed militant group's top commanders. Israel says that it responded with additional strikes in southern Lebanon. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken discussed the growing need for a ceasefire in the region and Hamas's response to the latest proposal while in Doha today.
A deal was on the table that was virtually identical to the proposal that Hamas put forward on May the 6th. A deal that the entire world is behind, a deal Israel's accepted, and Hamas could have answered with a single word: yes. Instead, Hamas waited nearly 2 weeks and then proposed more changes, a number of which go beyond positions that it previously taken and accepted.
Okay, so for more on all of this, we're going to bring John Donison back. He's with our partners at the BBC. Good to see you, John. The picture is holding. Let's dig into what's happening in the Middle East. How great of a concern is it right now that the war could further expand beyond just Israel and Gaza?
I think it's a real concern. Hezbollah have fired some 140 rockets into Israel today, some deep into Israeli territory. Many of them, as you say, were shot down. There was some fairly limited damage, including a number of forest fires that were started. And as you say, this came after Israel took out 4 Hezbollah operatives on Tuesday. Both sides have been relatively restrained, but it has to be said the violence we've seen since October on this border has been the most significant since the full-scale war between Israel and Hezbollah in 2006. And there is a real fear that any sort of miscalculation could lead to another major conflict which could pull in Iran, and that is something that everyone is trying to avoid.
So let me ask you, how has the fact that Hamas submitted their latest amendments to the ceasefire proposal, how does that change things for both sides? What are they saying about these amendments?
Well, look, the answer from Hamas was sort of yes, but no. And fundamentally, neither side has really changed their position. So what Hamas are saying they want is greater guarantees of a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and a permanent ceasefire. Now, those are two things that, although they are in this plan that the Americans have called an Israeli plan, they are two things that the Israeli government has repeatedly said are just not acceptable. So you have to remember that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said when the plan was announced by Joe Biden that it was a non-starter, and neither side has really changed its position. I guess what Hamas has done now is it's put the ball back in Israel's court, and we wait to see what their response is. We've already had a comment from an anonymous Israeli official who said this in effect amounted to a rejection of the plan by Hamas.
You know, you mentioned that Americans had initially called this an Israeli plan. That's what President Biden called it. Then the Israelis sort of backed away from that. You hear the Secretary of State saying, hey, this is a plan that Hamas had agreed to just, months earlier, and now they want to change things. Seeing as at some point in time, both sides were fine with this sort of plan, is there any possibility, is there any way that it could sort of be pushed through?
Well, I think Mr. Blinken must be hoping there's a possibility, and he's in Qatar now. Of course, Qatar, a key mediator in these talks, and I guess he will be wanting Qatar to continue to put pressure on Hamas. But as I say, neither side has fundamentally changed their position, and there are extreme right members of Israel's coalition government who have said they would quit the government if there was any sort of ceasefire or withdrawal of Israeli forces. They see that as a surrender to Hamas, and if they were to quit the government, then that would bring the coalition government of Mr. Netanyahu down, and we could be heading to elections. So it still seems pretty far off at the moment.
Yeah.
All right, John Donison, always great to have your reporting. Thank you so much for your perspective. Appreciate it.